All right, shalom everyone. We're in the second chapter of Ruth. Last time we talked about Ruth um, coming into the family of Naomi and Elimelech, marrying one of their sons. There was also another woman, Orpah, who married the other son. When Elimelech and the sons both died, Ruth and Orpah both said that they were going to follow Naomi back to uh, Eretz Yisrael, back to Bethlehem, or as most people today say, Bethlehem. And they both began the journey with her, and she gave them the opportunity to turn back, and Orpah did. But regardless of what Naomi would say to her, Ruth refused to turn away, and she actually made a profession of faith to her, and clung to her and said, "Your people will be my people, your Elohim will be my Elohim." And it basically said, "I will go with you, and if you're going back to Eretz Yisrael, I'll die there." Okay, because saying, "I want to be a part of your people." We talked about how that's actually can be a very much be a model for how we should go about our witnessing. It's just because somebody says they want to be grafted in doesn't mean that we should throw our arms around them and say, "Oh, you're a brother." Okay, we should tell them about the hardships. Tell them it's not easy. I'm get very frustrated. Even in the Messianic movement, I get frustrated with people I see who say, "Oh, come be a believer and your life will be great." No, come be a believer and this life will be really, really hard, and the next life will be great. Okay, we people leave out that middle part, and I think we lose a lot of people who might eventually have made that true choice because they're led to believe that they made the right choice and they haven't even understood what they're choosing. Okay, so we're going to start in the second chapter. It says Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a prominent and wealthy member of Elimelech's clan, whose name was Boaz. But the woman from Moab said to Naomi, "Let me go into the field and I'm sorry, Ruth, the woman from Moab said to Naomi, let me go into the field and glean ears of grain behind anyone who will allow me to." She answered her, "Go, my daughter." So she sets out, arriving at the field and gleaned behind the reapers. She happened to be in the part of the field that belonged to Boaz from Elimelech's clan. When Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to the reapers, "Yehovah be with you." And they answered him, "Yehovah bless you." Then Boaz asked his servant supervising the reapers, "Whose girl is this?" Okay, so he sees someone he doesn't recognize working in his field. Now, this is important because we're told in the last days that we will be called upon to be a part of the harvest. We're part of the team of harvesting now, but in the last days, it talks about those who will try to sneak in, who be outsiders, who will try to um, weave their way in, so to speak, sneak their way into the fold. Okay, they'll be wolves in sheep's clothing, and they'll try to act like they are servants of the Most High King. Well, I hate to break it to y'all, but it's happening, and it's been happening for a long time. That's why we go into groups, into congregations, and they have people on their leadership team who, when you ask them, when did you get saved, they can't even tell you what it means to be saved. Okay, because people they they ran up alongside of them. They maybe told them the gospel. Maybe they just said, come celebrate with us." "What are you celebrating?" "We're celebrating God." "Okay, I'll celebrate God, but God can mean anything. Your God can be a statue. Your God can be your car. Your God can be your house, or it can be the Elohim of Abraham." And so you get people who come into fellowship, quote unquote, into fellowship who aren't actually capable because they're not sons of Israel. They're not grafted in or born in. They're just not. And suddenly you're like, oh, okay, well, he's pretty popular. Let's make him a shamash, or in the secular church, or the shouldn't say secular church, in the mainline church, let's make him a deacon. Oh well, he's a pretty good talker. Let's make him a pastor. Let's make him, let's just keep giving him more and more responsibility because the people like him. Well, the people like Shaul too. I'm talking about the king. He was popular. He was good looking. He wasn't who Elohim had in mind. But Elohim let us have him because that's who we wanted. And we paid the price for it. Okay? So we have to be, in this case, like Boaz. And Mashiach. Boaz here can be a great typology for Mashiach, because when Mashiach comes through, it says he knows who's his. And those who are his know him. But Boaz comes along and says, who's this girl? Who does she belong to? Whose girl is she? The servant supervising the reapers answered, she's a girl from Moab who returned with Naomi from the plain of Moab. She said, please let me glean and gather what falls from the sheaves behind the reapers. So she went and has kept at it from morning until now, except for a little rest in the shelter. Okay? So he asked a very specific question. He got a very specific answer. He wasn't told she's just some girl that came along. Okay? She's a foreigner, but she's a foreigner that came in with Naomi. Now, instantly, Boaz gives Ruth a little bit more trust than he would have if she'd just been some girl who wandered in. Because she came in with Naomi, who he knew, whom he respected. She was his relative, not by blood, but by marriage, and he knew that if Naomi brought this woman in, this girl in, then this girl, there's something to her. Okay, there's a reason why she brought her back instead of leaving her in Moab. Okay, when people are so quick, and I know I've frustrated certain people here when they said, well, so and so wants to come to synagogue, and I said, well, is so and so, are they a believer? What do they believe? Okay, let me sit down with them and talk to them. And they're like, well, shouldn't you just be able to bring them in? The world's church does that. The mainline church does that. Just bring everybody in. And that leads to the problem that I was talking about earlier. Okay, I would rather have a very small group of true believers than a large group of mixed multitude who don't even want the truth. Okay? If someone comes to me in this group comes to me and says, I want to bring somebody in, you should expect me to ask that question. Okay? I should be asking the Boaz root question, whose girl is she? Okay? Because ultimately we're all supposed to be the bride, right? Whose bride is she? Is she the bride of Mashiach? Or is she going to be somebody else's bride and just pretending to be the bride of Mashiach? Okay? We talk about, people say, well, why do you make such a big deal over, you call him Yeshua and not Jesus? Or why do you get so hung up on the names? And so, you know what? If my wife rolls over and kisses me in the morning and calls me Bob, there's going to be a problem. Right? Okay? If my daughter comes to me and calls me anything but dad or Abba or Papa or Father, okay, if she walks up to me and says, hey, Philip, how you doing? There's going to be a problem, okay, because there's that's not the relationship that we're supposed to have. Okay, so Boaz is asking, what is this girl's relationship to me? What is this girl's relationship to Israel? And that's the question we have to ask when people want to come into synagogue. What is this person's relationship to Mashiach and to Yehovah and to us as a people? And if it's anything other than this person has made a life commitment, then they don't need to be sitting in this circle. Okay, we can take the word to them without bringing them into the fold. Boaz said to Ruth, "Did you hear that, my daughter? Don't go to glean in another field. Don't leave this place, but stick here with my working girls." Notice that? Don't go away, stick here with the people who are mine. Okay? That's the message when we find someone who has truly made that decision. That's the message we need to see. Come here and be part of the laboring force. Don't go anywhere else. Let us feed you. Keep your eyes on whichever field the reapers are working in and follow the girls. I've ordered the young men not to bother you. Whenever you get thirsty, go and drink from the water jars the young men have filled. So he says, now that I know who you are, now that I know the relationship is there, now that I know the connection, come here, be fed, be watered. Be fed in the word, be watered in the word. Okay, that's not what he's saying, but that's the typology there. She fell on her face, prostrating herself, and said to him, "Why are you showing me such favor? Why are you paying attention to me? After all, I'm only a foreigner." A couple of things I want you to think about here. First off, which way did she fall? And we've talked about this before. People who like to say they're slain in the spirit. And you see these charismatic preachers and they touch people on the head or they wave their hand and everybody falls backward except the cameraman. Did you ever notice that? The cameraman never falls over. They keep filming so that for our benefit, so that we can see the spirit move supposedly. Okay? They always fall backwards. Every time in scripture that someone falls in humility, in gratefulness, in submission, whether it's to Elohim, whether it's to a king, whether it's to someone who just saved them, they fall which way? They fall on their face. Okay? Now, does that mean it's not possible to fall backwards being slain by the Spirit? I'm telling you, there's no place in Scripture that shows it. Okay? So she fell forward on her face. And she asked a very important question. Why are you showing me such favor? Why are you paying attention to me? After all, I'm only a foreigner. And you know what? We get asked, so we'll be asked this, and I've been asked this when people choose to be grafted in. And I remember thinking this, before I knew I had Jewish blood, and I came to the Elohim of Israel, and I wanted to give my life to him. And I thought, but I'm an outsider. I'm not worthy. Well, no one in this room was worthy, and neither was Abraham. He had faith. Okay? He was still very much a Gentile in every way except his faith. And when he chose to cling to Elohim, to Yehovah, as the one and only true Elohim, at that moment he became his child. He became a part of the bride. Okay? And sometimes people who, like everybody here, has some sort of ethnic Jewish bloods, were part of Israel physically. But there are a lot of people who then turn around and don't want to be accepting of the foreigner. Okay? Abba Abraham was a foreigner. Abba Abraham was the first person to be grafted in. And just because we have his blood doesn't make us any more special than anyone else who is grafted in later. Okay? So we need to be prepared to hear that question. We need to be prepared to answer it. Boaz answered her, I have heard the whole story, everything you've done for your mother-in-law since your husband died, including how you left your father and mother and the land you were born in to come to a people about whom you knew nothing beforehand. I think sometimes we forget. I mean, we're ethnically Jewish, but everybody here was, to some degree, well, not you. Everybody here who is not my child was raised to some degree in pagan beliefs. Okay? We all came up in a different people, in a different culture. But I think sometimes we forget, we get so aggravated when people start to make the journey and then they run back to what they know. And like I said, the last time we were talking about this, it's not for everyone. Okay, we want everyone to be Jewish, but let's be honest. If everyone in the world was Jewish, we'd run out of work to do, wouldn't we? Isn't our job to teach other people the beauty of being part of Israel? Okay, so when they run back, I think sometimes we forget how hard that is. I remember having to tell my own mother that this is my covenant with Elohim, and if you can't handle that, then I'm gonna have to live my life, and you're gonna have to live yours. And then I think we went like a year without speaking because she couldn't handle the fact that I wasn't putting a tree up every December and lying to my kids about rabbits laying eggs. Okay, but eventually she figured out that this is who I am, and she could love me or hate me for it, but it'd be better if she loved me regardless. Okay, it is not easy to walk away from everything you know, especially when it's your family telling you this is everything you know. It's a hard choice. It's the right choice, but it's a hard choice. He's commending her, and I don't think we do that enough. When people make the decision, I don't think we say to them enough, hey, I know that wasn't easy. Okay? We're so quick to say, don't forget, you made a vow, you're not going back to that. But when they do it right, when they get it right, why do we not do what Boaz just did with Ruth? Why do we not go say to that convert, hey, I know this is probably the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, but you did the right thing. And someday, whether it's in this life or the next one, those people who are condemning you will understand that you were doing what you were called to do. May Yehovah reward you for what you've done. May you be rewarded in full by Yehovah, the Elohim of Yisrael, under whose wings you have come for refuge. You notice this man has saved both her and her mother-in-law from death by making sure they have all the food they need. And he says, may you be blessed by Yehovah, the Elohim of Yisrael, under whose wings you've come for refuge. He doesn't say, look how I've blessed you. I think there's another important lesson there, because I think we get so caught up in what we do for people that we forget to say to them, look what my Elohim has done for you. She said, my Lord, I hope I continue pleasing you. You have comforted and encouraged me, even though I'm not one of your servants. When mealtime came, Boaz said to her, come here, have something to eat, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. She sat by the reapers, and they passed her some roasted grain. She ate till she was full, and she had some left over. Oh, the messianic typology is there. Sit and eat with me. Can we talk about the so-called Last Supper? Sit and eat with me at this table. I'm talking about Pesach. Sit and eat with me on the after the resurrection, when he fed them, when they came hungry and he had food ready for them. Dip it in the vinegar, like the vinegar that was placed upon the lips of Mashiach, the last thing he tasted before he gave up the ghost, the last thing he tasted before the death in which we're commanded to take part and to relate to that. She ate until she was full, and she had some left over. And isn't that what happened both times he fed the multitudes? They ate until they were full, and there was always just enough left over for each of the disciples to take home to his family. I think there's also a message there for when we come to him and he feeds us. He doesn't just give it to us so that we are fed spiritually. He gives to us so that we can feed others spiritually. And he always makes sure that there's an abundance. When she got up to glean, Boaz ordered his young men, let her glean even among the sheaves themselves, without making her feel ashamed. In fact, pull some ears of grain out from the sheaves on purpose, leave them for her to glean, and don't rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening. When she beat out what she had gleaned, it came to about a bushel of barley. A bushel. Pretty good size for feeding her and Naomi. I want you to think about something. They could have lived on that bushel for some time. But what did she do? There was probably a temptation there. Boy, I've worked hard in this field all day long. I could just take this food home and we could just eat on it for a few days. But if you know the story, that's not what happened. So she picked it up and went back to the city. Her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned what she had gleaned, and brought out and gave her what she had left over after eating her fill. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where were you working? Blessed be the one who took such good care of you." In other words, Naomi knew there's no way that she just accidentally gathered all this grain. She knew that somebody was looking out for her, whether recognized it or not. You ever meet somebody, a new convert, or somebody who hasn't made that full decision yet, and you just know that Elohim's looking out for him or her, and you can see Elohim working in his or her life to try to demonstrate his love and who he is, and they don't see it, they don't recognize it, and you have to kind of point it out to them, and even then they don't usually get it right at first. She told her mother-in-law with whom she had been working, she said, "The name of the man with whom I was working today is Boaz." Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed of Yehovah, who has never stopped showing grace neither to the living nor to the dead." Naomi also told her, "The man is closely related to us. He's one of our redeeming kinsmen." That's going to be very, very important as we go further into the story. The word there is goel. Redeeming kinsman is the person with both the right and the responsibility to care for and provide for, if necessary, purchase back a lost member of Beit Yisrael. Okay, and it starts off being your next of kin, and if that person can't or won't, then it's the next of kin, and the next of kin. Lisa and I had prayed about adopting anyway, but when the situation arose and we found out that Hadassah was going to need a home and need a family to raise her, I immediately thought of, this is my responsibility, because her biological grandfather, I had promised when he was dying that I would look out for his wife and his children, and I felt that that extended to his grandchildren. And and so there was no doubt in my mind that it was our place, our responsibility to adopt her, to at least take her in. But I knew immediately I wanted to adopt her, and Lisa felt the same way. Um, I think we would have felt that way even if it wasn't a biblical principle. But the fact that it is a biblical principle really pressed upon my heart that this was something we were supposed to do. But really, it's something that we're supposed to do for every member of the body. Okay, and it's something that the body is supposed to do for the goyim. Okay, just like we're supposed to be priests to the goyim and show them the light. Sometimes we have to make personal sacrifices if we're going to show them the power of his love. Okay, and just like Abraham was grafted in, the fact that Abraham was grafted in means that they can be grafted in. And the fact that he was once a goy, he was once a goy, and the fact that we all once lived as goyim, means that they're our brethren too. They're distant brethren, they're separated brethren, they're not living like Torah says they should live. But we have the ability to be kinsmen redeemers to those who are outside the covenant and bring them into the covenant. Ruth, the woman from Moab, said, "Moreover, he even said to me, 'Stay close to my young men until they've finished my harvest.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It's good, my daughter, for you to keep going out with his girls so that you won't encounter hostility in some other field." In other words, your Lord gave you an instruction, and if you follow that instruction, you'll be safe. He'll protect you. And if you don't follow his instruction, you'll be out wandering in some other field, and any number of horrible things could happen to you. You know, our King gave us mitzvot. They translate it commandments, but it's connections. He gave us ways to connect to him. Just like Boaz said, stay close to these guys that work for me. I'll make sure you're safe. Our Creator says, stay close to me through these mitzvot. I'll keep you safe. So she stayed close to Boaz's girls to glean until the end of the barley and wheat harvest, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Do we have a midrash?